Welcome to A Lot to Grow Through. I'm your host, Artist Jardins, and this is a space of thoughtful conversation on healing, growth, and the art of becoming. Here you'll understand you have to grow through it, not just go through it. Today we're talking about triggers, what they actually are, why they happen, and how to work through them instead of against them. Let's get into it. Let's start with what a trigger actually is, because I think the word gets thrown around without really understanding. A trigger is a sensory or emotional cue that activates a past traumatic memory or emotional state. It's your brain's alarm system detecting danger based on past experience. Here's what's happening neurologically. There's a part of your brain responsible for detecting threats. It recognizes something in the present that resembles something from your past. A smell, a tone of voice, a facial expression, even a time of year. And here's the key. That part of your brain doesn't care about context. It doesn't stop to ask, is this actually the same situation? It just knows this feels familiar, and last time it happened, we were in danger. So it activates your nervous system. Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Your body is trying to protect you from a threat that might not actually exist in the present moment. This is important. Triggers aren't weaknesses. They're evidence that your nervous system is working exactly as designed. It's trying to keep you safe. The problem is, it's working with old information. Think of it like this. You're trying to solve a problem and you revert to solving said problem the way you've always done it. But this time, that way no longer works because the problem has evolved past the old system of processing. Understanding triggers wasn't some big light bulb moment for me. It was gradual. I started noticing patterns, certain situations would happen, and I've had the exact same reaction every single time, like clockwork. At the time, I wasn't really thinking about why I was reacting the way I was. I didn't even have a strong grasp on emotions yet. I just reacted. I wasn't sitting there trying to explain it to myself or analyze it. It just was what it was. But over time, something shifted. I started subconsciously creating boundaries around these triggers. Without even realizing what I was doing, I was avoiding certain situations, certain people, certain conversations. And then I got to a point where I thought, I don't want to keep having the same reaction every time this happens. I want a different outcome. That's when things changed for me. Once I started understanding triggers, really understanding them as protective mechanisms, not character flaws, everything shifted. I realized I can actually have control over who I am and how I act. That was huge for me. It started this whole new way of being, this focus on bettering myself, building what I call a one with emotions connection, where I'm not at war with what I feel, but actually working with it. So yeah, it wasn't a single moment, it was a process. And honestly, I'm still in it. One of the most disorienting things about being triggered is it collapses time. The past becomes the present. Your rational brain knows you're safe, but your body doesn't believe it. This is called temporal confusion. Your limbic system, the emotional center of your brain, doesn't distinguish between past and present the way your prefrontal cortex knows it's the past. This means your emotions can react to old events as if they're still real. When you're triggered, you're not just remembering the past, you're experiencing it. Your body is producing the same stress hormones, your heart rate increases, your muscle tenses, all of the psychological responses you had during the original traumatic event. This is why people say things like, I feel like I was back there, or it was like it was happening all over again. Because neurologically, it kind of is. So, how do you help your brain understand the difference? First, name it out loud if possible. I'm being triggered right now. This is a memory, not the present moment. Second, be in the present. Look around. Name 5 things you can see. Feel your feet on the ground. Touch something with texture. This signals to your brain, we are here, not there. When you think of the saying touch grass, this is a great connection to staying in the present. Third, remind yourself of the facts. I am safe. I'm an adult. I have choices now that I didn't have then. This isn't about talking yourself out of the feeling. It's about giving your nervous system accurate information so it can recalibrate. I want to tell you about a time this happened to me because it was so vivid I'll never forget. I was out somewhere just going about my day and I smelled something, a specific smell. The second it hit me, I was gone, completely transported. In my mind, I saw a full, vivid image of where I was the first time I smelled that. I was a kid. I could see the space, the colors, the light. It was like I was standing there again. And what surprised me was this wasn't a traumatic memory. It was a good feeling, a good moment, a memory I didn't even know I had stored away. Nothing pulled me out of that moment. I just rolled through and let it happen. But here's what's so disorienting: the intensity of the emotions. It didn't feel like I was remembering something. It felt like I was right back there in the exact moment in time. And once the door opened, other memories from around that same time started flooding in. Linked moments, linked emotions, all of it coming at once. That's what I mean when I say triggers collapse time. Your brain doesn't distinguish between then and now. The feeling is just present. And while that particular experience was positive, I've had the same thing happen with trauma, where something in the present pulls me back to a moment I'd rather not visit. And the intensity is the same. Your body doesn't care if it's good or bad, it just feels. That experience taught me triggers aren't always negative, they're just doorways. And sometimes you have to walk through them to understand what's on the other side. Not everyone has the same triggers. Your triggers are as unique as your experiences. We may feel like we have the same triggers as others on the surface, but underneath they all have different strings of reactions. I want to touch on some common categories for triggers. So, sensory triggers, you think of sounds, so yelling, doors slamming, specific songs. Smells, like cologne, alcohol, certain foods. Physical sensations, so being touched unexpectedly, confined spaces. Visual cues, facial expressions, body language. And then we have situational triggers, so feeling trapped or powerless, being criticized or corrected, feeling ignored or dismissed, conflict or tension in relationships. Then there's emotional triggers: feeling abandoned, feeling controlled, feeling misunderstood, feeling like you're too much or not enough. And then you have anniversary triggers: dates associated with traumatic events, seasons or times of year, holidays. But here's what can help: start tracking your reactions, not in a judgmental way, but with curiosity. When you notice yourself having a big reaction, ask, what was happening right before? What did I see, hear, smell, feel? Who was present? What time of day or year is this? Patterns will emerge when you do this. You'll start to see, oh, I'm always more active in the evenings, or I react strongly when people use that particular tone, or I struggle around my birthday. This isn't about avoiding all triggers. It's not possible or even helpful. It's about understanding yourself so you're less blindsided. Now, there's a common misconception that the goal is to never be triggered, that if you've healed enough, triggers won't affect you anymore. That's not true, and it's not the goal. The goal isn't to eliminate triggers, it's to change your relationship with them. Understand that you wouldn't want to rid yourself of understanding something that can shift you. It's more so knowing how to constantly overcome a discomfort to always stay on top of your mental health. You can't grow and learn from something you get rid of that comes back and you know nothing about how to combat the negative effects. Avoidance seems protective, but it actually reinforces the trigger. If you avoid every situation that might trigger you, you're teaching your nervous system that thing is dangerous. We were right to be afraid. Working with triggers means recognizing them, not judging yourself, tending to your nervous system, gradually building tolerance, and processing the underlying wound. Usually, this is done with the therapist doing trauma specific work. Here's what this looks like in practice. Let's say you're triggered by conflict. Someone disagrees with you, and your immediate response is panic, shutdown, or people pleasing. Avoidance: you stop sharing your opinions. You agree with everything. You withdraw from relationships where conflict might arise. Working with it, you notice, I'm triggered. My body thinks disagreement means danger. So you breathe and you remind yourself, I'm safe. This person disagreeing with me is not the same as, insert the original traumatic situation. You stay present even if uncomfortable. Practice saying a good grounding statement that keeps you present, whatever that may be. Over time, your nervous system is learning how to handle these triggering situations. Now, I want to be clear. There's a difference between working with triggers and re-traumatizing yourself. If you're in an actually unsafe situation, an abusive relationship, a toxic workplace, removing yourself isn't avoidance. It's self-protection, and that's healthy. Working with triggers is about building capacity to tolerate discomfort in safe enough situations and not forcing yourself to endure harm. Let me give you a concrete example from my own life. I have this trigger around people over explaining things. When someone starts going into excessive detail, explaining something over and over, I check out. Mentally, I'm gone. I stop listening. Now, part of this is my ADHD. That's definitely a factor. But there's also a trigger component. Something about being over talked at instead of talked with shuts me down. For the longest time, I avoided this. I'd cut conversations short, make excuses to leave, just not engage with people who communicated that way. But then I realized I'm not actually dealing with this, I'm just running from it. So now I try to let the experience happen. I sit with the discomfort and I ask myself, why do people feel the need to over explain? Maybe they're anxious. Maybe they think I'm not getting it. Maybe they're processing out loud. Or maybe it has nothing to do with me at all. That shift from avoidance to curiosity has been huge. But I'm not going to lie to you. It's been hard. When it comes to negative triggers, I've used to struggle with not letting them get to me. I wanted to just skip over the hard part and avoid discomfort, just move on. But what I've learned is you have to let the process happen. You have to let yourself feel the trigger, understand why it's affecting you, experience the full scope of it, because that's how you learn. That's how you develop control over it instead of it having control over you. I've developed frameworks now, ways to work through triggers that are negative and ways to embrace ones that are positive. Because not all triggers are bad. Some are beautiful, like the smell I mentioned earlier. But you have to let all of it in to fully understand how something is affecting you, and that's how you become stronger. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I've mastered this. There are still triggers that get to me to this day. I'm actively working through them. But the difference is I don't avoid them anymore. I face them, I work with them, and slowly I'm building a different relationship with what sets me off. It's a process, and I'm in it with you. All right, let's talk about shame. Because I think one of the most painful parts of being triggered is the shame that comes after. You react in a way that feels disproportionate. So you shut down or you lash out or freeze or flee. And then you judge yourself. Well, why did I do that? Why can't I just be normal? Or why am I so sensitive? Here's what I want you to hear. You're not overreacting. You're having a trauma response. Your body is responding to real threat. It just happens to be a threat from the past, not the present. That doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you broken. It makes you human. And more specifically, it makes you someone whose nervous system is doing exactly what it's designed to do, protect you from harm. If you can, explain to some people in your life, sometimes I have trauma responses that might not make sense in the moment. It's not about you. It's about my nervous system trying to keep me safe. I'm working on it, but it's a process. Most people who care about you will understand. And if they don't, that's information about their capacity, not your worth. So let's bring this together. Triggers are your nervous system's alarm system. They're based on real danger you experienced in the past. They're not evidence that you're broken, they're evidence that you survived something hard. The difference between past and present can be confusing to your body, but you can help by grounding yourself to the here and now. Identifying your specific triggers gives you information, not ammunition for self criticism. Working with triggers, not avoiding them, is how you build resilience and teach your nervous system that you're safe now. And the shame you feel about being triggered, that's just another layer to work through. You're not too sensitive. You're appropriately responsive given what you've been through. Healing doesn't mean never being triggered. It means getting better at recognizing it, tending to yourself and not spiraling into shame. I hope everyone that's listening can take one important thing away from this episode. Even when you feel like you're not in control or have been shaken out of your spot by a trigger, just know you're always in control, and whatever you enforce in your subconscious will always be your reality. And lastly, triggers can be both good and bad. What truly matters is how you control how they affect your emotions and reactions. You're not at the mercy of your triggers. You have more power than you think. And here's something I wish someone had told me when I was first learning about this. Triggers are inevitable. You can't stop a trigger from forming because you can't control every single experience in life. Things are going to happen and memories are going to get encoded. Your nervous system is going to remember, and that's okay. Because the goal isn't to never be triggered. The goal is to understand yourself well enough that when it happens, you know what's going on, you can tend to yourself, you can come back to the present. So please, never feel bad or be hard on yourself for letting a trigger affect you in a negative way. Life is about experiencing the good and the bad. You grow from both. The hard moments teach you just as much as the beautiful ones. You're not broken because you get triggered. You're human. You're healing. And you're doing the work. I hope you feel more understood after this episode, more informed, and I hope your experience, whatever it is, feels validated. Because it is. If you have questions about triggers or just want to share your experience, you can submit a listener letter to letters@alottogrow through.com or visit the podcast website, alottogrow through.com, for more information. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. This podcast and future episodes are available on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Until then, remember, healing isn't linear and you're doing better than you think. I'll see you next week.